Well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We will call this meeting to order on Wednesday, July the 8th, 2026. The time now is 9 a.m. This is our annual budget workshop. Hopefully in the beginning or the entranceway, you were able to obtain the agenda. We will get started on that immediately. At first, we will all rise for a moment of silence to recognize our first responders, followed by the invocation and the pledge by Commissioner Adams. Please pray with me. Our Heavenly Father, we come to you with open hands and open arms. We thank you for delivering us through a very busy weekend and keeping our county safe. Father, today, as we recognize the needs of the community, Father, we keep in mind our armed forces throughout our country, as well as our first responders, not only nationally, stateside, but locally. Father, we ask for your wisdom today. We ask that you help us be calm and ease any financial anxiety that we may have. Father, we know that you offer clarity and discernment. And Father, we also know that in your word, in Proverbs, it says, "For the Lord gives wisdom, from his mouth come knowledge and understanding." Father, we all gather together and say these things in your Son's name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Doing well so far.
Welcome again, and we will begin with the budget message by our county administrator. Mr. Administrator.
Good morning, Chairman Moore, Vice Chair Moss, Commissioners Adams, Fletcher, and Ehrman. I'd also like to welcome and thank the public, as well as our constitutional officers and state agencies in attendance, along with nonprofit partners the county support. I appreciate their efforts and understanding as we work to formulate the FY 26-27 budget. I want to extend my gratitude to our county attorney, department directors, and their management teams for their diligent work in developing their departmental budgets. I also want to thank Deputy County Administrator Mike Zito, Assistant County Administrator Nancy Bunt, and our Legislative Affairs and Communications Manager Kathy Copeland. And certainly my Executive Assistant Mary Ann Thomas, managing my calendar during the budget season and keeping me on track is no small task. Finally, I want to acknowledge and commend our Office of Management and Budget, Director Kristen Daniels, Senior Budget Analyst Elise Chris, Budget Analyst Kaylee Fairchild, and Budget Analyst and Grant Administrator Marie Ramskin. Sorry, Marie, I think I butchered it. They worked tirelessly with the departments, reviewed budget details, prepared the budget document, and helped assemble today's presentation. So before I officially present the recommended FY 26-27 budget, I want to provide a brief educational overview. It's a little bit of a shift from the past practice. With the introduction of Amendment 3, there's been many comments and misconceptions regarding the county's budget. I believe it's important to provide clear context and factual information to set the stage or set the table for this year's recommendation and help dispel misunderstanding. This year's budget reflects a disciplined, forward-looking approach to public finance during a period of economic uncertainty and potential statewide tax policy changes. The recommended budget of $614.8 million represents a significant 13.6% reduction from the current mid-year revised budget, yet a modest 2.7% increase over last year's originally adopted budget. This is 1.5% below the May CPI of 4.2%. This careful balance underscores the county's longstanding commitment to prudent fiscal management. Despite rising operational expenses, including health insurance, retirement contributions, and mandated program costs, the county is maintaining the millage rates for the general fund, MSTU, and emergency service district. This reflects our deliberate effort to protect taxpayers from the additional burden while meeting essential service demands. The only millage increase appears in the land acquisition bond 2024, tied to the issuance of the program's second tranche of bonds, which just closed on July 2nd. Within this environment, we continue to prioritize key operational areas. Public safety remains this county's central priority. The recommended budget honors the settlement agreement with the Sheriff's Office while emphasizing the necessity of sustainable long-term cost management and law enforcement spending. Additionally, the county is assuming full responsibility for the animal services and mental health court operations, a step that strengthens accountability, improves service delivery, and integrates operations more effectively. The recommended budget makes targeted staffing adjustments, continues investing in employee training and leadership development, albeit at reduced funding levels, and scrutinizes capital projects largely to carefully avoid operational liabilities in future years. Several major funds, including the Transportation Fund and Emergency Service District Fund, show reductions due to declines in transfers, cost controls, and project timelines. Looking ahead, the county is preparing for a slowing economic growth, shifting real estate conditions, and the possibility of major statewide tax restructuring. Our strategic thought and planning will focus on enhanced financial monitoring, evaluating potential service impacts, exploring revenue diversification, and aligning our fiscal policies with our long-term community express needs. Ultimately, the FY 26-27 recommended budget positions Indian River County to manage near-term pressures while strengthening our ability to adapt to future fiscal challenges. The broader fiscal landscape remains complex. State lawmakers have placed a constitutional amendment on the November 2026 ballot that would significantly expand the homestead exemption and reduce assessment caps for non-homesteaded properties. If approved, these changes could reduce the county ad valorem property tax revenue by approximately $22 million in fiscal year 27-28 and $41 million in fiscal year 28-29, creating some serious challenges in sustaining core public services. In preparation, county administration is forming an internal tax reform advisory committee following the budget workshops. This committee will evaluate organizational operations, identify feasible policies and service options, develop strategies for the board to guide long-term decision-making, and given the magnitude of the potential revenue changes, thoughtful preparation is essential. Next year's budget process may be extraordinarily difficult, and informed strategic decisions will be critical to determining what services the county can sustainably provide. Within that context established, I will now transition to an overview of the budget's primary revenue sources and use our current budget to illustrate several key concepts and facts to understanding the county's fiscal structure. So first and foremost, there's multiple funds in a county budget. You have generally government funds and proprietary funds. Within our governmental funds, we have our general fund, our MSTU fund, and we have our emergency service district. You'll see the red box behind those, around those, is because those are the ones that are exclusively or primarily funded through property taxes. And take the general and the MSTU fund. The general fund, it accounts for all activities that are countywide, and whereas the MSTU fund, and that means all the departments, the constitutionals, our state agencies, and any community services that we provide. The MSTU fund provides, services specifically to, or fund services for the unincorporated residents, which represent about 2/3 of our county. The Emergency Services District, also relying upon ad valorem property taxes, accounts for all our emergency services, district revenue, fire rescue, and life safety. And so that's with the exception of the Indian River Shores. They have their own public safety department. So those are the ones that were reliant upon property taxes. All the remaining governmental funds and proprietary funds we have our special revenue funds. They are restricted or committed for a specific purpose, such as the tourist tax, coastal or street lighting, and MSBUs. Debt service fund, that's obviously restricted to pay debt. Our capital projects fund, those are funds that are restricted, our financial resources that are restricted, committed, or assigned to expenditures for capital outlays, such as the Jackie Robinson Training Complex. And then we have our proprietary funds, which are our enterprise funds. And those essentially act like a private business, whereas the expenditures that are financed through, by that fund, say Sandridge, the golf course, golf club, it's all financed and is funded through the user charges. So it's no taxpayer dollars are funding like Sandridge Golf Course. No taxpayer dollars are funding the solid waste district. No taxpayer dollars are funding the utilities. That's based on their rates and their as well. And then building. Building and permitting, they rely on the fees for their planning, the permitting review fees, and things of that nature. And then we have our internal service funds. That's essentially a fund where we have any goods or services that are provided by departments that benefit, like human resources, OMB, IT, fleet, and they provide a service to all the other departments. They pay their fair share into that internal service fund. It also covers risk and health insurance as well. So again, the big thing is, each of these are separate funds, and they are required to be balanced by Florida statute, and they're segregated to maintain control over the resources for specific activities and objectives. So this is kind of the same, but this kind of helps expands a little bit. These are the various fund types. Again, you have our general MSTU fund, as I mentioned previously, and the general MSTU fund, the Emergency Services District, are funded by ad valorem taxes, the property taxes. And that constitutes our BCC departments, our operations. That's the libraries, parks and recreational services, facilities, animal control and services, code enforcement.
IT.
Are there any cuts there?
So from there, it also, it covers our constitutional officers. And then it would also, are the community redevelopment agencies, the funding that we provide to them, our state agencies. If you recall, we covered the expenses for the state attorney's office, the circuit court administration, the public defender's office, the medical examiner,
Juvenile justice.
there's another one, guardian ad litem program. And so we pay for those expenses. The state pays for a portion of it, and then we pay for the other portion of it. Our economic development, children's services, and then the nonprofit agencies and transportation. Emergency services, again, that's the Emergency Services District, MSTU, that's the taxes, property taxes, fire rescue, and life safety. And those are the ones that largely, again, are primarily funded by property taxes. And then, not going to repeat all the restricted funds, but as you can see in the special revenue funds, those ones specifically, because they have differences. The traffic impact fees, obviously people paying for the new development pays for its share of the impact to the transportation network, facility impact fees. There's also, there's other impact fees as well, such as public safety, the corrections, there's the schools, there's parks and recreation, and I think that's pretty much, there's also water and sewer impact fees. But then we also have the rental assistance, where we receive money from the state, gas tax, tourist tax, that's restricted funds. These are all have very specified purposes for which money can be spent. You can't blend them between one fund and another. And then the other funds, as you see, the debt service fund, that's the bonds, and the land acquisition, the Dodger Town bonds, and that is, largely right now, the county's portion's paid off, and we have I think about 4 more years?
2031.
2031, more than 4 years. Okay, 2031 is the year that we will finish paying off the bonds related to Dodgertown, and that would be the monies that we receive from the state and then subsequently pay the debt. Then we have capital projects funds. We do have an agreement with MLB to maintain and assist in some operations on the Jackie Robinson Training Complex. We also have our optional 1 cent sales tax, which funds certain infrastructural items as approved by the voters. Then our enterprise funds, I mentioned those before, don't want to reiterate those. And then there's, again, our internal service funds. So the larger point here is that we have many funds that are very restricted, and then we have ones that are funded by our ad valorem property taxes, and that's our general fund, MSTU, and our emergency service district. So using...
Excuse me, Mr. Minister.
Oh, maybe this is, never mind. I'll wait till after this slide. This might answer my question.
So using the current year budget of $598.8 million, which was the originally adopted budget, you can see here, ad valorem taxes represent 31.3% for the overall budget, $598.8 million. Local sources are about 105.9, some state revenue sources, another revenue we get from this 27 or 4.5%. We do get some federal assistance through on our housing programs and some other ones, like FEMA and stuff like that, 1.1%. We do have some cash forwards that we bring forward, interfund transfers, that's like that internal service fund I discussed. And then we have non-ad valorem assessments, that's like the SWID. And then we have user fees, which go back to the issue of whether it be in utilities for the connection service charge, building permitting, the Sand Ridge Golf Club. So that's kind of a breakdown of where our sources are for our originally adopted overall budget. But when we hone in on the general fund, which we mentioned is primarily funded through our taxes, ad valorem taxes or property taxes, that's $107.2 million, or 68.3% of our general fund is funded by taxes, property taxes. We do get some other local sources and state money, we get some federal money, but you see there's fund transfers, as I mentioned, we have the interfund transfers as it relates to each department that's kind of providing services that benefit the county as a whole, and then we have some non-operating sources. But as you can see, 68.3%, so if you were to, this is where you would be looking at in terms of, the $21 million, $22 million in year one, is you'd be trying to cut this out of this amount, and this covers all our constitutionals. I think these are the expenses coming up. So they'll come up more. So going into our 2026 originally adopted budget, when you look at this, the general fund is 26.2% of our overall budget. The MSTU is 9.4%, and the transportation fund is 4.5%, emergency services is 12.3%. Why do I highlight that? Because that's 52.7% of the entire budget of that $598 million, and that's from ad valorem funds. They account for 52% of our entire budget. So looking at property taxes, the total amount, last year, or this current year, is 196.5, and you see for countywide in the blue, the countywide operating taxes, you have for the general fund, 57.4% or $112.8 million fund our countywide operations, which is our constitutional officers and the sheriff, our judicial activities, as I mentioned before, the circuit court administration, the various state agencies that provide services through. Am I coming through? Okay. Our financially assisted agencies, children's services programs, the BCC operation department, and then other agencies and transportations. So out of that 112,887, 112.8, I can tell you this, I mean, I want to say it's about 37,660,000 is roughly the BCC operations out of that fund. And then you have the unincorporated MSTU, it's about $20.4 million, anywhere between 65 and 68% of that is transferred into the general fund for the purposes of helping fund the cost for law enforcement services within the unincorporated area. And then our emergency services district, and Their operating in capital is about 31.2% or $61.3 million. And then we have the county voted debt taxes. So I'll stop here right now to see if you want to discuss this further. Do you want me to go into this next slide?
Commissioner Adams.
Oh, my question was answered, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
So the reason why we put the dollar signs up here, I mean, first, I think it's important to know that Indian River County citizens pay one of the lowest average property tax millage rates in the state. I think DOR ranks us at number 7, but yet we are the 31st largest county in the state. Every year we balance the budget without raising the general fund for the last 6 years. And just so I mentioned again, the total overall budget, because I see out there, everybody says, oh, well, $598 million, it should be easy to cut $50 million out of there or $40 million out of there. But what we're really looking at is that $156 million, if it was applied to this year's budget. How do you cut that $41 million out of there, and how does it affect all agencies, from our constitutional offices, our state agencies, and county operations? So, and when you see from where the dollar comes, 68.36% is ad valorem, and then we transfer fund money in. But the more importantly is when we go down below, or how the dollar's spent towards that 156.9 million, 55.5 cents out of every dollar goes towards public safety. General government's 20%. That's the 20% that you manage for the purposes of carrying out BCC operations. So you get 20 cents on the dollar.
But can you explain BCC operations? Because
that's
when you
like-
say BCC operations, people think just the county
office.
commission
Yes.
office.
No. What that means, that's all our departments like parks, libraries, veteran services, animal control services, planning, code enforcement, and then as well as the internal functions that we have, administration, HR, IT, budget. So it's public works.
So basically, it's anything under the control of the county.
county commission,
When we say
correct.
BCC operations, we mean county
County-wide
government
operations, not just a board. So I think that's important to note. 20 cents on the dollar out of every dollar collected is being managed to run all those, to include, I think I mentioned stormwater. I don't know if I did, but we pay for stormwater out of there too. So, and then we do have some interfund transfers, cultural recreational expenses, human services, and the court-related is about 1.1%. We do have reserve for contingency. We are required by law to have a reserve for contingency, some transportation expenses, and then we have a very, minimal economic environment expenses, in terms of at this point in time. So this just kind of shows, our public and members of the public that, when we talk about the property taxes in terms of like, oh, well, 40 million, 50 million can be easily cut out of 598, but it's not out of that. It's out of the 156. Mm-hmm. So it's really we're talking roughly, a third to, about a third of it roughly that would impact our general fund. And again, that would be all agencies, to include the constitutionals, state agencies, children's services, and nonprofit, and then the transportation that we pay for as well. So another comment that's, we know everybody's like, oh, we've been adding and increasing our number of employees. And I think it's interesting to note that back in 2006, 2007, prior to the Great Recession, at that point in time, we had a population of 130,043, and we had 964 employees, or we had 7.41 employees per 1,000 residents. If we were to fast forward to today, and I'll also say the budget at that point in time was $472.4 million. And so we fast forward to today, and we look at the 600, I'll use the number that we're going to recommend, $614.8 million. It's about a 30% increase in budget, and it's only about an 8.5% increase in staff. So my point is during that same time period, we grew by 42,970 people, 33%. 33% increase in population, and we only added 82 employees. So the myth out there that the county is bloating its budget in about hiring people, and you know, it was just last year that we even come close to the number of employees that we had going back to just right before the Great Recession. So, I mean, I think that's important to note, you know, just for context. So now, with that, let's dive into the reason why we're here for the upcoming year, and that is for the FY 26-27 budget. But I will pause if there's any questions related to that little background to try to provide some context and kind of puts, you know, hopefully put some truth and facts out there related to where we are as a county. I can't speak to where other counties are because I know all the counties are being and cities are being painted with one broad brush, but I know where we are as a county, and I feel that this board, you know, this current board, current administration, past administrations have done a very fiscally prudent, you know, job in managing the budget and its operations.
Thank you, John.
I think it's important to say that public safety, and you showed it with the dollar bill, is, you know, it's 55% of the money at stake here. And I think people are under the impression that, oh, no, that's, you know, that's protected. It's not protected. What's
Yes,
protected is the school district. Okay, you're still going to pay for the school district no matter what. Doesn't matter. You're paying for it.
Mm-hmm.
And the constitutionals, and that's it. And they're tiny. I mean, constitutional budgets are very small. The school district is the bigger part of it, and you will be paying for that no matter what. Public safety is not protected. It's not.
The provision for protecting public safety was in the original session that did not go make it through.
And it's gone.
And in the special session, there is no protection for any services. It says we shall fund public safety and core services and stuff like that, but not at what level. If you proportionately, if we look at a $22 million decrease, we would, you know, we intend to, in subsequent meetings, kind of show you what that impact is going to look like. But our mission and focus for today was to focus on this budget, but we did want to provide some education because we know there's a lot of commentary going on right now, but we think it is important for the public to understand and for our taxpayers to understand where we as a county are. You know, because there's a narrative going out there, you know, in terms of, I get it, there's some counties that are being audited, you know, but at the end of the day, you know, we feel confident that we have been properly and fiscally in a responsible manner managing the taxpayers' dollars. But yes, you are correct. The only one protected is school levied taxes.
Thank you. Commissioners, any other comments? Thank you for that preamble, John. Well done.
Okay, so let's talk about the 26-27 budget. A couple of things we did coming into this fiscal year. We implemented zero-based budgeting. We did, for those we didn't do it, you can't, it's kind of hard to do it all. You can't, it's a big exercise, and if I brought Beth, you know, Powell in here, because we used the one large department, and then we picked some other ones, and we're going to make our way through all of them over the next couple years. But we did the boards, county administration, OMB, which is budget, risk management, procurement, mailroom expenses, and then we did parks and rec and conservation. And we started with a zero-based budget, and we had to justify every line and explain why was this being increased, what was it, or what was the amount. And so we did that, you know, and we will continue doing that in the ensuing fiscal years. We also held a series of quarterly meetings, the executive staff working with OMB to monitor trends and to review items, looking at revenue diversification opportunities, monitoring permit history. We know our permit levels are down, the revenues are down there, impact fee revenues are down, and then I already mentioned revenue diversification. And one of the other things that we did do is we did evaluate, and I mentioned it in my message, so I'm going to put it here, is that we asked, OMB prepared for each department, what's a 5%, 10%, and 15% reduction look like for the department. And then we asked the departments to go through and kind of help us understand what those impacts would be. And I would say the 5%, modeling exercise helped greatly in us being able to maintain our general fund budget that at least for the BCC operations that covers all of the functions that you are responsible for at a 0% increase, and I'll go into that. So for budget comparisons, and I'm just gonna try to make this simple, but I know can be confusing. So we adopt a budget. We adopt the budget. We adopt a budget, and then what happens, we have some projects, capital projects or service contracts, where it doesn't happen in just 1 year. So we have to wait till September 30th, actually a lot of times in October, to find out what the actual expenses were that were incurred by September 30th. And anything that's left to be done under that contract, like you take the sheriff's admin building that's being built, couldn't happen in 1 year. 66th Avenue, we know that didn't happen in 1 year. So you have to roll that over. So that's why you see an increase from the originally adopted to the what we call the mid-year revised budget, because then we look at it at mid-year. Other things that happen is we have unplanned expenses. Like this particular year, I can think of two. We had a funding shortfall, due to some gas increase prices for our transportation system through SRA, as well as some grant timing. And then we also, the sheriff presented us an issue with the fire suppression system that we felt was important to, and we had to respond, and so we did a budget amendment to accommodate those. So that's why the budget sometimes increases mid-year, because one, you're gonna do the rollover or carry forward those projects, so once you know the exact balance that's due, and then you also have some unplanned expenses. So, in terms of the total budget, at the mid-year point of this year, the budget was $614.7 million, it was $711.7 million. And we are recommending a 26-27 budget, or overall budget of $614.8 million roughly, which is almost a $97 million decrease, about 13.6%. But to make it fair and go look back at the originally approved budgets, just so people see, well, where do we compare to that? So we're there. Last year, it was $598.8 million. This year, we're recommending, again, $614.8 million, which is about a $16 million increase, or just a 2.7% increase. And I think that's important to note, because the CPI for April, or for May, was 4.2%. So we are 1.5% under the CPI. And if you go by the formula that Florida Tax Watch and under the CFO is looking at, they look at population growth plus inflation, and we didn't even look at that. We just said we are lower than the actual CPI itself, but I would also assert that we don't buy things that consumers buy. We buy things totally different than what consumers buy, and at levels that are extraordinarily much greater. So some highlights. The tax roll increase was 6.8% overall. And I just want to provide some context for that, because we have been seeing since 22-23 that rate going down. It did jump from 21-22, kind of post-COVID. It jumped up because we saw a hyper real estate market, and it jumped up to 13.49%. But since then, it has progressively been balancing out, like the market always does. And so we went from 13.49, and then in 24-25 was 10.3, and then it was 8.81%, and now this year it's 6.8%. So we're seeing it coming down, and those are levels back, pre-COVID. So we are seeing that the market's adjusting itself, and we're seeing the growth rate is actually adjusting itself. And what corresponds to that is the amount of revenue that comes in. For the unincorporated area, which would be for the MSTU, is 7%. For the sheriff, as you recall, there was a mid-year settlement agreement. There was a recommended, there was a $4 million agreement. Well, it was $3.5 million we took out of cash to fund his operations, last year, current year, and then $4 million increase. Keep in mind, money that was taken out of cash plus the $4 million this year was $7.5 million, which is actually more money than we actually received in new revenue this year. So just to kind of put that in perspective. We did see retirement rate increases, largely along the special risk. I was looking at the special risk category, all of the categories, and the special risk went up from 5.85% to 7.25%. So that was the most significant increase, but this includes all constitutionals. We had a retirement rate increase. The state sets these retirement rates. It's not us, it's the state that sets the retirement rates because it's the Florida retirement system. All counties and states and actually numerous municipalities belong to it. So, but this includes the constitutionals. We also have to, we are very responsible and very fiscally wise to budget and account for our post-employment benefits. Many do not, and it is an anchor around their neck. But we do. And the increase this year is $1.5 million into that fund, which was a 288.6% because we had seen a couple of years where it had gone down, and that includes our constitutionals. If you don't, this is debt that you're incurring if you don't fund this. It's just literally, it's not good. Matter of fact, with our rating agencies, when we went out to bond, they were just very impressed that we actually are one of the few that actually go out and make sure we're looking at those, post-employment benefits, that liability that we have. Our health insurance increase, the board's well aware of this. We just discussed this in June. It was 32%, which includes all our constitutionals, a total of $6.14 million increase, which also the employees had an increase to theirs, and we made some plan design changes. And then for our staffing, it does reflect that there, for the BCC or for the board, there's a decrease of 6 full-time positions, but overall there is an increase of about 14.35 full-time positions within our constitutional officers, and so the net is an increase of 8.35 total full-time positions for the county and constitutionals. For the county, we are decreasing our staffing, making some adjustments, vacancies and otherwise, by 6 positions. So this table reflects something we've been saying, that the county has continued to maintain the line on the millage rate, 3.5475. I understand that is, because it's above the rollback rate, it does constitute a tax increase, but we've maintained our millage rate, to be able to sustain our operations. Ad valorem, as you can see, it continue, it's going up similar to population. Maybe the last couple of years a little bit higher because there's been slower growth, as we mentioned. Post-COVID, there was a big boom, and then kind of it's starting to level off. So you're seeing that. Our current population is about 173, just over 173,000. And then millage rate comparison. General fund, again, 0% difference from last year to what we're proposing this year to you. The land acquisition bond, as we mentioned, we went out for the second tranche or the second part of the full $50 million issuance. And so what was 0.06 is now 0.12 and change, if you will. And so that doubled the amount, and that's the bonds for our environmental lands acquisition as approved by the voters. Our MSTU, which is, again, serves our unincorporated area, the millage rate we're recommending to remain the same at 1.1506, 0% increase. Emergency Services District, and I really want to thank, our fire chief, and department head Dave Johnson and his staff, because, we thought this might require an increase because if you recall, we increased the Kelly days last year. We are finally building a permanent home for Station 15, and so we were able to, in large measure, due to some things that we've done in the past, such as advanced purchasing and some other items, keep that millage rate the same at 2.3531. So the aggregate millage rate as you know, in 2026, and this is not what everybody's going to pay, but this is just the aggregate. When you look at it, it's 6.1158 this year, and it's going to 6.1155 next year. So then, just by way of comparing ourselves to surrounding counties, we compare very well. As we know, Brevard County, I'll say it, you know, Brevard County has a provision where they won't go above 3% on new revenue or on their existing revenues or CPI, whichever is less. And they don't count new construction or their assessments and all that, but they still, they limit their millage rate. You know, they limit the increase in that regard. So they have kind of, at one point in time, we were less than them, but because of this, they now have, you know, they are below us. But you can see where we compare to other counties. St. Lucie, you know, we're 7. We always look where we are in Martin County, similarly sized. They're 6.5. Hernando, 6.8. Charlotte, 6. You know, you could just see it. I mean, again, we have the 7th lowest millage rate according to the Department of Revenue. You know, overall, but with all jurisdictions included, the aggregate millage rate, you know, in the county. But this is just the county's millage rate. For our constitutional officers and state mandates, this is really important. I mean, 71.4% of our expenses is state mandated. That's funding our constitutional offices, funding the state agencies. And then we have requirements where we have to meet certain things like, you know, the BMAP requirements. We have mandates where we have to, let's see, stormwater, I got that. I'm trying to think, I had a list. I'll find the list and get it, because I do have a list. I apologize. So, but there's a number of things that we are required to do by the state, which has a cost ascribed to it. Medicaid. Medicaid's a perfect example. We have to pay Medicaid expenses for indigent care to the Cleveland Clinic and Deep River Hospital. Because they're a taxing district, they do less amount, but we still are paying over $1 million for Medicaid. Medical examiner's office, we're paying for that. We're paying, you know, this year we're taking on the victims assistance program that's coming out of the state attorneys. We have to pay for that. Guardian ad litem program, we pay for that. There you go, emergency management. We're required to do animal control and animal services as Humane Society capacity has, you know, we didn't just take this decision on lightly. We were kind of forced because of the capacity issues with the Humane Society. You'll see in the budget there's still funds there, so because we want to be a partner and try to work with ways that we can maximize and leverage this. But at the end of the day, we have the responsibility. When our officers, you know, animal control officers go out in response to a call for a dog that's maybe on the loose, that's barking and maybe terrorizing the neighborhood or kids, they have to respond. I mean, it's a public safety threat, especially if it's a wild animal that's foaming out the mouth. They have to respond. It's not optional. So those are some of the mandates that we're saddled with. You know, school resource officers, that is a function of the school district, but then the state passed it, and they provided zero funding for this. They passed it post-Parkland. I'm not saying it's not the right thing, but I'm just saying they provided zero funding for this, and we pay for it. We pay 50%. It's in the sheriff's budget, but we provide the sheriff the funds, and then the district reimburses us, and we're booking about $2 million of reimbursement. So the county's paying 50% of a state mandate again. So overall, 61.4% of the general fund expenses are just related to the constitutional offices. So when we look at the revenues by category, you see for 26-27, taxes account for 40%, permits and fees 10%, intergovernmental revenues 5.1%, charges for services, you know, for things that they do, where they pay a fee, 24.4%. And I will tell you, like our charges for services, I'm going to use building and permitting and some of our plan review. I mean, they are right now lower than they should be, but we have tasked and we're seeing it happen in building and permitting. That has improved. Each of you have told me you received nowhere near the number of comments or concerns as it relates to building and permitting, but we need to get the whole process improved is the task before we go back and say, listen, here's what it costs us to do this. This is, you should be paying this full cost. When people say government should operate like a business, I always like to tell them, well, if we did that, we would also add a margin onto the end of what that full cost for that service is, but we don't do that. So, like the utility system, they're not adding a margin. SWID's not adding a margin, a profit to it. It's the cost of what it costs us to provide that service. So, typical house comparison. Last year, the value per the property appraiser, the average assessed value of homesteaded properties last year was $316,544. It's gone up a little bit, $327,540. When you take 366 versus 377, but when you less out the current homestead exemption, it's the taxable values, 316, 327. So if you look at this with our current general fund and maintaining the millage rate, it would be about a $39 increase for the year. Land acquisition, that's again $21, but that's because we doubled the amount of the debt that was approved by the voters. And then for emergency services, about $25.88. So in the unincorporated areas, they'd be looking about an $86.13 increase if you maintain the millage rates for the general fund and the emergency services district. And then when you add the MSTU for unincorporated, you're an additional $12.65, but $98.78 is the total increase based on maintaining the millage rates. And interestingly, just realize this, we'll go into it in a minute, but the only rate that's going up this year related to solid waste is the pass-on rate from the CPI, and it happens to be $2.22. So if you look at that, we're looking back at $100 increase, this year, 4.39%. General fund overview. The ad valorem I mentioned is 6.8, 7.267. And additional revenue, that's by law, we have to budget at 95% of those. And so when you think about that, $7.5 million was the commitment to the sheriff, because we paid 3.5 out of cash and then the $4 million. So again, this year, the sheriff will consume all the new revenue, and that's agreed upon. The millage rate, 35475. No change from last year. Constitutional officer increase is 7.9 million or 8.1%, of which the sheriff's, again, about 6.9 as it relates just to the general fund, because there's some from the MSTU. Children's services funding increase is $297,000 or 8.5. Please recall, in that instance, we use the funds that the budget this year is based on the monies that we collected in the current year. So, or the budget for next year is based on the monies that collected during this year. And it's limited to 1/8 of a mil. And you approved that, I want to say it was in April or March. The state mandated retirement as it relates just to the general fund is $692,753,000 or 3.8% increase. OPEB, $815,546 or 291%, including our constitutionals, for both of those. The health insurance, big hit to the general fund, $3.2 million or 34%, including constitutionals, and we already discussed the positions. The total cost is about $673,000 for those positions in BCC, and then there's an additional $14.35 in constitutionals. By categories, in terms of revenues, again, we see taxes being property taxes, and this also does include other, like the optional sales tax and all the other taxes, right? Oh, general fund only, so it's 69.8%. And then intergovernmental revenues, we send more to Tallahassee and send more to Washington than we receive back. Charges for services, licenses, interest, other sources, 19.4%. General fund expenses, again, we've mentioned that 61.4% is related to our constitutionals, the BCC, 21.8%, so that for this year, it's $21.80 out of a $1, or 21 cents, 21.8 cents out of the dollar that you get. Transfers, we mentioned what those were from the interfund transfers, as well as our reserves that we're required to maintain. Children's services, a 2.2% increase. Nonprofits, it's maintaining level. You're going to see that I recommended 0 increases for the most part for all of our nonprofits at 1.5%, and state agencies is 3.7%. This is really just to show you not just the history, but also what the rollback rate would be. It's 4.62. The rollback would be it's about 4.62% above the rollback. What that means come budget time or the budget public hearing time with the new legislation, it will require 4 votes to approve this. The general fund, the operations, and what I can do here is go through some of the highlights for each one of these. The BCC operations, please recall that that was one of the zero-based budgets, and it's the only reason it's increasing is largely due to the mandate increases for salary, as well as our salary increases for the employees. We currently have several of our contracts have we have IFF too, and Teamsters that have a contractual increase of 4%. But then they also they're roughly 2.5% increase on their pay anniversary, on their anniversary. So that's largely the reason why that's an increase. The county attorney is the same reason. It's $20,000 increase, largely due to the salaries. The GIS, it's a decreased budget of about very little, almost flat, just 0.2%. Communications and emergency services. You're looking at a $763,000 increase, largely because of the ring system and the camera rollover from last year. It's now going to be complete. It's taken off the books. The main library, you're looking about a $100,000 increase, and that's largely due to both the salaries and benefits and health insurance. The same for the North County Library and the Brackett Library. It's all the salaries, benefits, and insurance. I would again want to commend the department directors on their operating budgets, because we worked very diligently with them, and we really worked to bring them in low, understanding that we're beginning around January, through March to where health insurance may be going and some other expenses. The soil and water conservation, there's a decrease largely due to reducing some of their internal costs, travel, registration, software. And when it comes to the law library, again, related to the salaries and benefits. We do have mental health court. This number is where we are taking the funds that we were providing to the circuit court and the funds that we were providing to the sheriff previously are now going to be coming into us, and then we're going to be managing this. We've been working with Chief Judge Schwab, Judge Mintz, our mental health providers, and community services to take this on in terms of the case management and helping, and we believe it will be better served, and so right now we use the expenses from the prior year plus what the salary expenses were to develop this year's budget. And I want to commend Cindy Emberson, and her team, along with all of our partners as we work through this. I think we began early on in this calendar year, but after April, when we got the budget settlement, we got some of the information that we needed, the sheriff's office, and they really accelerated and moved this along. So I really appreciate, and Mike Zito's work as well in this. County administrator operations, that again, largely the increase in salary and benefits. The community services, you have there about a $29,000 increase, and that is, one, it's besides the salary and benefits insurance, we also, one of the things that we're doing is there is a program specialist that was being paid for the general fund. So, and we are, that's one of the positions that's being, we were chose not to fill. And so we had to rebalance the SHIP number and the general fund number. So we're taking on a little bit of a portion of that, and we're decreasing because of the decreasing grant from SHIP. Human resources, the same salaries, benefits, insurance. Veteran services would be the same. What I would say on veteran services, as you know, we have about 19,000 veterans in our county, and I think we're on track to service close to 7,500 of those. So when we talk about essential services, that's a pretty significant, concern for us, for our veterans. Emergency management, there's a decrease there largely due to we received an FDLE grant for drones last year, and then our emergency management program expenses were processed as a budget amendment, or they will be processed as a budget amendment if we receive that grant. Parks, last year it's going down because last year we had a Griffith Tour grant, and there's fewer maintenance projects this year. The human services, it's increase again when you see them at that amount. It's mainly because of salaries and benefits. On the ag extension, besides the salaries and benefits, remember we have an agreement with the University of Florida on this, but there's some additional landscape materials, and plus they will be relocating to the fairgrounds and the modular units that are being placed out there and freeing up that space. And what we will do with that space is that's probably where we'll put the mental health court personnel. For conservation lands, there's a reduction there because there was some improvements to the Ryle and the Oslo conservation area last year. And they also purchased an equipment trailer last year, so that reduces that. Purchasing, there was an increase in salaries and benefits, but also the bonfire software and dues and professional development for additional staff member. Our facilities management, I think you all would agree that the facilities management, the level of service that we've received since we've taken that in-house has increased exponentially. But yet we're looking at a lesser amount this year, largely due to the janitorial services decreased by coming in-house, and then also decreasing our electric and garbage costs. And then we've done some projects this year, such as the supervisor of elections flooring and the tax collector's break room last year. And then last year we also had to purchase, when we took over the custodial services in-house, we needed to purchase the 5 cargo vans for the employees that were traveling and maintaining facilities. So that's why that budget's going down. So OMB, it's a reduction. Largely, there's decrease in travel, and we also made our final payment on our Treasure Tomorrow, the Economic Development Strategic Action Plan. So that's the reason for the increase. But building and facilities, the increase there is related to is largely related to salaries, benefits, health insurance. The FPL grant, it's going down. I'm going to try to just highlight the ones where we have an increase, if that makes more sense for everybody, not unless you want me to continue going down each one. Like for instance, telecom, it's just because we completed the telecom budget, insurance premiums, we actually decreased our insurance premiums this year. But animal services, we're going to be looking to take on operations fully, beginning in November 26th when our contract with Humane Society ends, at least to the extent that the level of the contract that we've had in the last number of years. The mailroom, there's increasing there because of largely, benefits and insurance salary, but also postage and printing expenses have gone up. And then our lagoon, we decreased our muck removal and water quality monitoring. There was a project there, the water habitat restoration facility study, and the National Scenic Byway Shoreline projects were done last year. We also had a NOAA habitat restoration grant, and if you recall, we bought a pump-out boat and trailer and fittings last year, which will help with the anchoring limitation areas as well as pumping out, vessels and stuff like that, so we can reduce that potential pollution. So for the total budget, did get it right, okay. $37 million for the general fund for BCC departments. $37,660,056 was the amount for 25-26, and that is the exact amount that's being proposed for 26-27. That I'll pause and see if the board has any questions.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Fletcher.
I did have a question. It was early on, though. You expressed some concern about OPEB as far as the constitutionals, and we as well. In thinking about the impending legislation, and again, nobody could have predicted 2007, 2008, and 2010, where collectively we had a FTE reduction of, in 1 year, 260, but in total about approximately 301 FTEs. I don't think that Goldman Sachs or the Treasury Department could have calculated the risk factor for OPEB, and we got through it. So I ask you this, with looking at the correlation with the FTEs per capita, do you feel comfortable and confident that after reviewing all of the submissions with the constitutionals for OPEB, I know there was some revisions, and we here at the BOCC, well, the employees, not the office, are we in good shape?
Yes, because we are funding it as we're funding it as we're going, we're in advance. We're not like doing pay-as-you-go, paying for the benefits, post-employment benefits as we incur those expenses. We are funding the liabilities that are projected. They are actuarially evaluated. And so what do we do for next?
There's a study that's done every 2 years, and the actuary gives us an amount per employee that we need to stay fully funded. It's an estimate, and we are funding that amount. So we're funding their recommendation.
But it's a sound estimate as far as, and again, I just want to point out, in those years, there was no way that anybody could have predicted the coverage.
Yes, we
a lot of furloughs.
I understand that. So I would just say the actuaries, it is a true science in terms of determining what the costs are. They use them for the retirement plans, whether it's a local plan, whether it's a state plan, and our funding level is at full funding level. We're at 100%.
We're funding what the recommended amount is to maintain our fully funded position.
Fully funded, whereas let's just by way of example, the state pension plan I think is about 85-89% funded, somewhere maybe 80-82%. So we are fully funded.
Well, we did dip down a little bit this last report because we weren't making those additional contributions into the health insurance fund for the premiums. But these rate adjustments do help us to get back on track.
So if, when they do pension report cards, and they give them a letter or grade, we would have an A, if not A+.
Just wanted to point that out, looking for next year. Again, as I pointed out, those 3 years, I don't think the drop zone could have been properly delineated.
Thank you.
As well as as far as how deep the science is. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Fletcher. And I'll add that, as mentioned earlier, with respect to OPEB, a lot of municipalities and counties do not fund, they simply report. So we should be very proud that we're doing that. And OPEB is obviously important to our retirees. Also make an observation that absent OPEB and health, which we've been able to absorb, those are our key components. The administrator mentioned some employment, collective bargaining. It should be noted that 3 of those are due to be revisited next year this time. Keep that in mind. And finally, I would add that the absorbing of mental health court, it's not lost on us that we're also absorbing 2 employees, 2 full-time employees.
And actually, a program administrator that was being used. So
And I think that's
where-
50-50.
Yes.
Right. Any further questions? Hearing none, we will address the constitutionals as a matter of protocol, and after the constitutionals, we will take a 10-minute break. Thank you, Mr. Administrator.
So for our constitutional officers, overall, there's an 8.5% increase. The current year budget is $102.6 million, and it's increasing by $8.7 million, or 111.4. You will see the most significant increase is, as we, the settlement agreement with the sheriff for the $7.5 million. It's really $4 million new this year, but there's also the reality of the $3.5 million that came out of cash. So you can see the clerk of circuit court is increasing is nominally at $84,000. The tax collector, this is an estimated budget because they're not due to complete their budget until August 1st. The property appraisers provide us their budget, nominal and 3.7%. The sheriff would be an 8.7% increase. Supervisor of elections, a 3.6% increase. The value adjustment board, just due to the amount, it's 23.7%, but it's only $16,000. And then the inmate medical, and the electric, that we budget that, but but that's the amount of $650,000 that we are budgeting again this year. We started it this past year, and we are continuing to do that. And that's the sheriff made that request, and it was consistent with the statute. There's a mandate right there. There's consistent with the statute that we fund those expenses. And then the sheriff's electric expenses. So it's 8.5%, and I know as my understanding, the clerk of court was unable to be here today.
Correct.
So I'll turn it over to the
Thank you. We have a few constitutionals here if they would like to comment. I know Property Appraiser Davis always has some enlightening words for us, as well as our Supervisor of Election, Ms. Leslie Swan. Welcome and good morning.
Good morning, good morning. And, whenever the governor started talking about the property tax reform and that kind of stuff, it's pretty easy to start reading the tea leaves about what the people are feeling out there and what they're thinking. And so whenever we came when I sat down with my team and I said, guys, let's do everything we can to help the commission out as much as we possibly can. This was before we knew anything about the health insurance to the level that it was, but we knew something after the conversations. And of course, my office is not any different than what you have to deal with. I have mandates too. One of those that fell this year is for the Department of Revenue. We had to do aerials, and that's a $70,000, $75,000 expense for the aerials. Now, we get benefits out of those because we put them on our website for the public, but it's still something that we have to do on a regular basis. I think it's a 3-year period that fell this year. But I think the important things for me to just kind of highlight to you is there was no new employees as far as full-time equivalents right now. Proud to say that's the same staffing level that we've had since 2010, since the throes of the Great Recession. Whenever we were part of, I was sitting up there with Commissioner Fletcher, and we said, cut your budgets by 30%. And there's a big difference whenever you have to cut a budget by 30%, because you're talking about packing this room. This room was packed whenever we were making those kind of cuts. So I have empathy for you, but also really my empathy is with the taxpayers in our community. I get it, and because the insurance cost, not the health insurance necessarily on their side, but the property insurance, those things are continuing to run. And so we kept all that in mind whenever we put together the package that we have here in front of you. Of course, the Department of Revenue says it needs to be neither inadequate nor excessive in order to do what we need to do to put values on every piece of property in the county. And we put that right here in front of you. And we will have a sizable check again of some empty, not filled positions that'll be coming in about October, end of the fiscal year kind of thing. So if you have any specific questions, be more than happy to ask, but we've got the COLAs in there. We've got the health insurance increases, and we had it in the red until the health insurance increases. So, but I'm proud of my team, what they were able to put together. And again, this was all done with the intent of looking out for the taxpayers in our community.
Thank you, Mr. Property President. Thank you for always taking the time to answer our phone calls no matter what. And that is very refreshing, so thank you.
I'd also like to thank you, Mr. Property President, for you and your staff's help in terms of us understanding and better understanding the impact of the potential amendments.
My pleasure. And also I'd like to just say on the trend notices with the solid waste or the garbage collection, I mean, that went very smooth last year, so I expect that to happen again. And work with your council and add a little bit of language to the trim notice to pull it more in line where we think it should be. And so we're looking forward to another successful trim season.
Thank you so much. Ms. Swan, Supervisor of Election, if you'd like to. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Chairman Moore and Commissioners. Thank you for this opportunity to be here this morning. I first want to thank the County Administrator and the Board of County Commissioners for our new carpeting. Our old carpeting was 19 years old, and the new carpeting looks amazing. And you also did us a huge favor because our vehicle was on its last legs. It was 20 years old. We had to jump start it in order for it to run, so we were able to purchase a new one, so we'll be able to move equipment around for the upcoming election cycle. And in our budget, we basically have two major capital projects. We're moving our server room into where the IT department is. It's on kind of an exterior wall, and there's a big water pipe there, and if anything were to happen, we'd be in big trouble. And the second one is we have to replace an existing computer firewall. It's reached its end of its life cycle. So our budget, when we originally submitted it, was a 1.7% increase, about $45,000, but then with the increase in the health insurance, it's 3.6% or $87,000 increase. So I want to thank you all for your support as always.
Thank you very much.
You know, Mr. Chairman, I just wanted to point out, again, 20-year-old vehicle needed to be replaced. Yes, that was said. The only thing we were missing was the explosion from Uncle Buck's startup. It was in bad shape, so we're happy to take care of that. But I just wanted to point out on the building, I believe not only the maintenance but operation. It appears the same building, except for the new carpet. It appears to be the same building as when the ribbon was cut with K-Clem. So I want to thank you for your continued dedication of properly maintaining what we have for the citizens.
When I see what other counties have, I am extremely blessed because our facilities are amazing compared to some of the other elections offices. So thank you.
The word meticulous comes to mind.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I see members of the Sheriff's Office, if they would like to chat. Welcome. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair and Commissioners. The Sheriff, while he is not here today, is actually listening online. But I wanted to say on his behalf, thank you all for your support. Thank you to Kristen and John. It's always a pleasure working with Kristen. She and I get along really well. But thank you for your support, and we're very grateful for a smooth year this year.
Thank you very much. Any questions or concerns? Commissioners? Hearing none, the time now is, I think, it's 10:06, 10:14. We will take a break until 10:20. Good morning again. We will resume the July 8th, 2026 budget workshop. During the break, we were informed that Sheriff Flowers would like to comment on his proposed budget. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Commissioners. Appreciate your time this morning. Our original agreement, when we settled last year, was for a $4 million increase this year. Since that has happened, you guys voted last month to increase our healthcare costs countywide. That's for all countywide. And as I said to each of you in private, I would just ask that we be treated similarly to the other constitutionals. Having discussions with county administrator and conversations about mental health court, my request at this point would be, we submitted an additional $1.8 million, which is the cost of our additional health care with that vote that was made, saying that we could split that difference for a $900,000 difference. When you back out the difference with mental health court, that results in an amount of $4,570,926, and that's my ask, that we go above the original agreement to account for that additional cost of health care minus the cost of mental health court, which you guys are going to take over October 1. That's my ask.
Mr. Administrator.
Mr. Chair, may I also address?
Yes.
Okay. I did want to state that we do have a written settlement agreement, and it was entered into to resolve litigation and the Administration Commission action. And at this point, it is not an ambiguous document. It clearly states what the parties agreed to. So it also says that the parties agree that this agreement contains the entire and exclusive understanding and agreement of the parties and may not be amended or modified except by mutual signed agreement of parties. So because the terms of this settlement agreement govern this budget process, I would just counsel the board, if it were to go outside the terms of this agreement or consider that any change be done in writing to comply with the terms of this settlement agreement. So I just want to state that on the record, that we have an obligation to all the parties to comply with this. If the board wants to change the deal, it has to be done in writing.
Understood, and we appreciate all that you've done to work with Adam and everything. We appreciate
Thank you.
that. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not, I just wanted to say that so everybody
Thank you.
understands.
So we have an agreement that is on file for FY 26-27.
And that's exactly right. And our agreement says, the county agrees to provide additional appropriations to the sheriff in the form of a budget amendment in the amount of $3,500,000 as provided by Florida law. This amount shall be added to the sheriff's 25-26 budget for a new budget total of $89,273,472. The sheriff agrees to make no further budget amendment requests during the 25-26 fiscal year except in the event of an emergency as declared by federal, state, or local officials affecting Indian River County that materially impacts the sheriff's budget. The sheriff and county agree to a $4 million increase in the sheriff's 26-27 budget for a total budget of $93,273,472. The sheriff agrees not to appeal the 26-27 budget funded in this amount, and that the sheriff will provide all budgetary information needed, and we would each bear our attorney's fees and costs. So that is clear, and I counsel all the parties to basically, if you want to go outside the terms of this agreement, we simply do it in writing.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Flesch.
that agreement, which is filed at the court, compelled this board, I know I made the motion, to add additional funding for the sheriff so he can carry through the rest of the 25-26. I believe it's over $3 million.
Correct. That was the compromise, if you recall, to allow his agency to get to 930.
Yes. Just wanted to point it out.
Okay, but we're talking today about 26, 27.
Yes.
And the agreed amount in the settlement agreement was 93.2. And I think it's 273. So that's the starting point. That's where we're at. We have something that is binding an agreement.
Exactly. If the county administrator had brought you a budget that was less than the $4 million, I would have counseled him and this board to live up to the terms of the agreement. It would not have been acceptable. So, yes, that's the exact amount that's agreed to, and the agreement just states that if you want to change it, you need to vote to amend this and make that change in writing. It needs
Right.
to be in writing.
And I will say that we're having this discussion because we gave the sheriff's office and other constitutionals what we thought was going to be the health care. After 5/1, we went to the constitutionals and we realized that our health care cost had gone up,
And they pulled it.
right? So I think, to be fair, keep the agreement in place and have the administrator and the sheriff somehow work that out with the starting point of being 93.2. Commissioner Adams.
So I just want to be upfront before we go into this conversation of where my position is on this. With all due respect to the sheriff, we have a settlement agreement. It was negotiated and signed. Part of the danger or the gamble that you take with a settlement agreement is that the terms of the world you're living in may change. The attraction to me for even agreeing to the additional dollars and the settlement agreement was that it gave us a clear defined amount of what your budget would be this year. So I am not in favor of going beyond the terms of the settlement agreement. I believe we've taken on inmate medical last year. We're taking on mental health court this year for $693,980, which was in your budget last year and won't be in your budget this year. We have had to absorb the increase in medical expenses without raising the millage rate. And to the point of being treated like the other constitutionals, I would just point out that you are the largest constitutional. You have the largest percentage of the general fund overall. And unlike the other constitutionals, you're not similarly situated in the fact that we have a signed settlement agreement with you. So that, I just want to be upfront where I am at this point if we're giving direction on moving forward.
Mr. Chairman, 2 points. This is a workshop, and any written documentation would have to be voted upon, and I don't believe that we can vote today. There is only but one vote that we have. In addition, and counsel will correct me if I'm wrong on that.
You're correct.
Excuse me?
You are correct. I mean, you have one decision today, which is the millage rate.
There's only one, and that's the mill
This is a
rate.
workshop for everybody to get to have the discussion about what their needs are and what has to happen.
Thank you, Counselor.
Sorry.
I appreciate it. In addition, we can all recall back to what happened in 2012 with the FEC and the rail system. We had a very contentious relationship, which we stood tall, and an agreement was made, a legal agreement was made, and they were slow to respond to it. And quite frankly, if you look at the scenario now, you've seen recent additions to enhance public safety that will be on the agreement of 2012. So things can work out in the future without altering the agreement. Again, it was a tough road to get to the agreement and then to have it honored, but more importantly is additional work was done, additional funding was supplied, and a relationship was enhanced. So I just didn't want to have that glim picture painted that we can't change anything. But there are manners in which we can apply some support for meeting the mark. I asked County Administrator comment as well.
I think what our county attorney is saying is, I mean, you don't need to vote, but you need to provide consensus whether or not you're amenable to amending the settlement agreement. I guess the amount would go from $4 million to an additional $570,926. And then that would have to come back before the board in one of our August meetings prior to the budget hearing.
Correct.
Is that correct?
That's my advice, yes. So it's certainly something you can entertain. It just needs to come in a formal amendment to this agreement, if that's the board's pleasure.
Council, would that be considered a vote? Because if we're looking at consensus, we're looking at a legal documentation representing the county on a decision. So would it not be?
I think that you can give your staff direction to, in whichever way that you decide. So I don't think you're taking a formal vote because you really aren't doing it until you have an amendment in front of you, if that's the direction you choose to go. That's in writing that you approve. You can engage in discussions, you can give staff direction without a formal vote, and we will act accordingly.
So is that, you're stating that it can be done with consensus, so would that be a majority or a supermajority for legal documentation?
Okay, so if we were to come and amend this agreement, it would just be a simple majority. It would just be a simple majority necessary to amend this settlement agreement, unlike the new requirements that the legislature's put on you just to keep your millage rate the same. You need a 4/5 vote now. So they've made it harder, but in order to change this, you really just need a simple majority. So it would come to you in the form of a written agreement. The board could direct me and the county administrator to work with the sheriff's council, and Adam and I have been trying to reach each other. We're playing phone tag anyway because we need to talk to make sure that all gets worked out, whatever happens.
So I have a question, because you're talking about not being able to make a decision one way or the other, which I understand the whole voting concept, but every year we adjust the budget that's presented and oftentimes take breaks or over lunch, ask budget to go back and crunch different numbers and bring us different scenarios. So I'm looking at what the sheriff is proposing as one of those exercises of he's asking us to take what's being presented and adjust it somehow, and in order to adjust it, setting aside the settlement agreement, staff is going to have to figure out where to take that money from that's being presented or roll that into some kind of millage increase. So I do think that we need to give some clarity to them as to where we are on it, and if this is something that you guys want to do, then we need to give them some idea of where those dollars are gonna come from. And I think we're within our rights and ability to have that conversation, because it seems like we have it on different subjects. I think we had it on the sheriff. We had a kind of a sidebar trying to figure out last year some additional dollars, so it's not out of the realm of the process.
Agreed, and customarily, that would be the purpose of this workshop, yes. However, it brings into the fact that we have a settlement agreement, and it has been filed, and council brought it up, and I wanted to ensure that we're not in violation.
No, and let me just be clear, and I'll kind of use this as an example. When we sat in our shade meeting, when we were in litigation and I appreciate the sheriff reaching out his hand to try to initiate the settlement. We ended up delivering a settlement. We sat in that meeting and I told you, you are not allowed to take formal action in the shade. But you can tell me to keep talking to the sheriff's attorney because I'm listening to you. You're giving me feedback. We're allowed to talk about that. I think it would be a similar type of thing here. We don't have pending litigation. We're not going into the shade. We're doing this all in the sunshine, which is what we should do. But you can give staff direction, I think, without taking formal action. Formal action would not happen until I brought you a document in writing and the board voted. And that would certainly be advertised in advance. I hope that helps.
It does. What about a discussion of keeping the settlement agreement where it is, 93-2, by consensus allowing the sheriff to keep any rollover excess funds for FY 25-26?
And so again, I would still kind of recommend that we bring something to you to formalize that. But certainly, if that's the board's pleasure, I'm happy to engage in conversations with Mr. Fetterman about it.
Well, I think the only reason you would need Mr. Fetterman if we were going to modify the agreement, and I'm hearing that the consensus is not to modify the agreement. In other words, the starting point for next year would be 93-2. And the balance of any dollars between now and 9/30 would revert to the sheriff. Mr. Administrator?
I've heard from 3, I don't know about the other 2, but what your thoughts are.
We took about 1.2 million then? It was 1.8 minus the 600,000 for mental health court? Is that what we're talking about?
So it's, the amount increase is 1.88, and so it's 944 what is being requested to share. And then there's about 372,000 of expenses in the sheriff's budget right now. And so the actual amount, and if you look at the screen, it's 4,570,926. Right now, you're at, the agreement that we have says 4 million. So that you'd be looking to amend the agreement to provide that 570,926. So that's what we're trying to get the consensus. Do you want us to Jennifer's point, work with the sheriff and work with the sheriff's council to, between now and the next meeting or the meeting after August, because it would have to happen prior to the first budget hearing.
I'm willing to discuss it.
What did you say? I'm sorry, Commissioner.
I'm willing to discuss it, yes. If we're giving direction to discuss it, I think that's what we're doing. I mean, I think this should just be an agenda item at the next meeting, so we can have a more full-body discussion. It's a little, on the fly here, trying to figure out what it is exactly. And I understand Commissioner Adams' point. You want to take that into account too. That's a valid point. But yeah, everybody, this was unexpected for all constitutionals, and I understand that too. So yeah, I mean, that's what I think. I think it should be an agenda item at the next meeting, if that's doable.
Commissioner Fletcher.
Mr. Chairman?
Mr. Irvin.
The other Joe. Yes, I kind of agree with what you were saying, and I agree with what Commissioner Adams was saying about this. I mean, I think we need to honor the signed agreement, but yet we can talk about how to come up with the 500 and something thousand in a different manner. I mean, things happen through a budget year. It's just happening right now at the beginning of the budget year. It's coming up. That it's something that we can do, whether it's excess money, whether it's something that we can find a way to do it. Maybe there's something else that we could do, but I think we need to. I think we'd be best to keep the agreement separate and do something totally different at our next commission meeting, and that gives time for the sheriff and and the county administrator and budget to look at, work something out with this. Can we do that?
Mr. Chair, what I hear is a lot of voices saying that they want to honor the terms of the settlement agreement, but also try to find a way to work with the sheriff on this healthcare issue that everybody's grappling with.
Sounds right.
And I have not had the benefit of conferring with Mr. Fetterman, and I would like to do that so we can give you the best advice collectively on how to do that within the terms of the current settlement agreement. So respectfully, I'm listening to you. I think what I'm hearing is an interest on the part of the board to see if we can salvage this agreement, but also work out maybe something to meet some needs. I don't think I'm misstating what you all are saying to me. And I don't feel like without having in full fairness to the sheriff and his counsel, I feel like I need to sit down with his counsel before I tell you with certainty whether this document should be amended, were you to decide to give back monies or whatever you do in this budget process.
Well, I'm hearing something different. I'm hearing that the settlement agreement stay in place. I don't think there's a need to have a conversation
Okay.
with his attorneys. I think we're set at 93.2 for next fiscal, and this outstanding $500,000 balance needs to be worked out between the administrator and the sheriff. I don't know why, because if you engage Mr. Fetterman, that sounds like you're going to amend the agreement. What I'm hearing is the agreement is an agreement. So now we're going to modify an agreement? That's not why we agreed on the agreement. We agreed on the agreement for a variety of things, to include a pending lawsuit and a pending appeal. I think that's why we agreed to it. So I don't know why we would amend the agreement.
Okay, I hear you.
So,
At one point in the journey, your word is your bond.
true.
We need to have that.
So, to Mr. Administrator, how do we resolve this absent modifying the agreement?
I didn't stay at Holiday Inn last night. I'm not an attorney, but I think if we are able to work and find a way to find $570,000, 571, you're going to have to modify. I would think you would have to modify the agreement. Maybe you caveat it to your point about but the baseline budget is still the same. That would be the change.
But the agreement specifically says for a 2026, 2027 total budget.
Yeah.
Total. So anything that you guys want to give him beyond that requires
That's my point.
a settlement agreement change.
Yes.
Because you will have to put in a new number, or else we are not complying with the terms of the settlement agreement. I'm not saying, and to his benefit, that we won't be, we're going above, but the terms are what the terms are, and if you want to change the contract or the settlement, you have to change the terms on the paper because you're bound by the four corners of the signed agreement. So it's either he gets the $4 million that we agreed to, or you're going to have to change the settlement agreement. And I think Jennifer's point is we can have the discussion about whether we're in support of that or not today, and then bring it back for an official vote. But if you don't want to change the settlement agreement, then that means that the total budget is what is in the settlement agreement.
So in other words, there's no way to modify, which would be an increase in his 26, 27 budget without modifying the agreement.
Correct.
I agree with that.
Even if he were to have excess dollars in 25, 26, that we would, by consensus, allow him to keep, that wouldn't solve the issue.
I'm not certain, because I know he and Amy, the CFO, had mentioned that they were using their funds And we're expecting not to have, any significant amount of excess.
I thought the 3.5 was to make payroll by 9:30.
Come on.
Anything that we deferred for the fiscal year 27 budget to make the initial 4 million work, whatever we can't, we have prioritized those list of items. Any funds that we have left over from operating, because that 3.5 million did go to payroll, budget transfer to payroll, budget amendment. Anything that we have left over will be used to buy down that list, priority needs for fiscal year 27 that we deferred. So there will be very little. May I ask, I don't know with the agreement, does the agreement prohibit us from coming to the board in fiscal year 27 for budget amendments?
That's a hard question.
Does the question, does it prohibit you to come forward for future amendments?
In fiscal year 27?
Right, that's a good question.
Based on correct, for 26. Based on my understanding, it did not prohibit us from coming to the board for amendments for fiscal year 27. So if it's better, could we come to the board quarter of the way through the year, see where we're at, run our numbers, if we're projected to be in deficits, or like the grant that I mentioned to you, Chairman.
Yes.
If that doesn't work out,
Right.
we'll need to come back for amendments. So is that an avenue instead of trying to?
Yes. I would agree with that. In fact, when I met with the sheriff last week ago, Monday, I did mention, in fact, that he could come 26, 27 for perhaps a budget amendment with, of course, the documentation. So just like we modify budgets for other constitutionals throughout the year. That, and I thank you, Ms. Cooper, for that. That seems to be a way to resolve this today, if we by consensus agree to that.
Mr. Chairman, that's why I pointed out that the additional funding that was allocated for this current budget, it happened. We did make an amendment, and that was post-agreement. And I believe the agreement, a legal binding document, was agreed upon to end all of the suit, end all of the decision, and it set a mark. But I don't believe that it would preclude a budget amendment, as you suggested last year as well.
Correct.
For the current year.
Correct.
I believe there is an option here.
Yeah, and I believe if I remember the agreement, it talked about any amendments in 25, 26. It did not talk about 26, 27. So, Sheriff and Mr. Administrator, that seems to me to be the option. I'm against getting the attorneys involved to modify an agreement. The fact is, the agreement's in play, and on 10-1, essentially that agreement is satisfied. Because there's nothing that says 26, 27, he can't do that. He does say he can't appeal, but it doesn't say anything about.
No prohibition.
It doesn't say anything about budget amendments. Any further, Sheriff?
Biting my lip. You guys do what you're gonna do.
Okay, do we have a consensus to entertain budget amendments 26, 27, if the sheriff comes to us? In the interim, the administrator and the sheriff work out the balance of dollars for 26, 25, 26.
Easy one for
I
me,
think we
yes.
know the amount.
I'm sorry?
I mean, if we know the amount, if you want to put not to exceed.
Not to exceed 570, 926 for the budget amendments allowable.
Okay,
To exceed, number again?
the 579.
570, 926. 570,926.
Yes.
Do I hear a consensus?
Yeah, I'm good with it.
Any further questions, Sheriff?
No, sir. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioners, that brings us to the MSTU fund. Mr. Administrator.
Going back. Okay. Yes, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, moving for the MSTU. So the ad valorem tax roll increase, if you recall, is 7% increase. That'll generate approximately $1.36 million in additional revenue at the 95% collection rate. The millage rate is currently 1.1506. We are recommending no change in the millage rate. There is a total of transfers out of $43,983,162, which is an increase of $859,565. That's largely due to going to the general fund for the purposes of funding the sheriff for his services in the unincorporated area. The OPEB increases is well, it says 191%. It's really minimal at 19,000. Health insurance 182,000, with the net decrease of 3.1 positions that we have in the MSTU. And for that, let me flip here, MSTU. So I can more. So this is the MSTU millage history. Again, it would be maintaining the millage rate would be 4.26% above rollback. As the state declares that it is considered a tax increase, but it's 4.26% and not, this would only require the four votes. The MSTU expenses.
John, I'm sorry. When you mentioned the 4 votes, I think we should let everyone know that was effective 7/1.
Correct. With the governor signing of that. It kind of got convoluted because that bill also, or that joint resolution also discussed the constitutional amendment. So everybody kind of believed it was all related to the constitutional amendment, and then further along, we all realized, wait, no, that's effective immediately, and then DOR has confirmed that with us, that that's effective immediately.
Right, that's
So,
Plan B.
yeah, it was kind of interesting the way they did that. So for the North County Aquatic Center, if you recall, the reason why there's a decrease there is we did the well rehab last year, so those expenses are coming off. The increases for both, for the Gifford Aquatic Center, recreation, intergenerational, are largely related to the increase in the health insurance, and for the IG, it's related to also there's a reduction in the electric and maintenance costs. For the beach parks, the amount is beach parks is we had a simulator grant and a shed last year. The shooting range, it's related to the increase in salaries and benefits, plus there's also a new camera and server system, and there was the Bobcat last year. For planning and development, we are looking at, there was an office renovation that's occurring now that'll come off the books, plus there's going to be a decrease in salaries and benefits due to turnover. For county planning, you're looking at the elimination of 2 positions, and there's also, last year we had the expense of the Oslo Road corridor analysis, the document scanning rollover and the renovation from last year. For code enforcement, again, that was related to the rollover for the scanning and laserfish conversion. That's coming off. And then for natural resources, very small amount, but it's largely related to, we did some environmental assessment and planning work. If you recall, there was a vulnerability study that we did, so that comes out. And then for the tax collector, we just estimated for this fund a 10% increase of expenses. We don't have the budget yet for the tax collector. So in total, The current year's budget is $13.1 million, and the proposals to go to $12.3 million, or an $824,000 decrease at 6.3%.
Thank you, John. It should be noted that the reason why we do not have to increase millage rates in that department is because of the cuts we've made.
That is correct.
And I think that's often overlooked.
Questions? Okay, so transportation. Another, again, the OPEB increase, looks like a large amount, but it's only $41,130, at least from percentage-wise. Health insurance, $433,822, the main drivers. The gas tax revenue, we are projecting $2.7 million, which is about a $49,000 increase. Transfers from the general fund, which account for about 75% of the total fund's revenues, are decreasing by $1.6 million, or 7.8%. And that's largely related to, if you recall, we did additional sidewalk maintenance last year. We also did some sidewalk repairs and irrigation. And then there was some decreased insurance costs. Plus, we purchased 4 trucks, the excavator, the dump truck, and the industrial mowing system last year. So that's why that amount of 1.6 is coming out. And there's a net decrease of 3 full-time positions with a savings of $413,000. And so you have, so for the terms of the road and bridge, that's the $1.1 million decrease is related to the purchase of the 4 trucks, the excavator, dump truck, and the industrial mowing system. Public Works is, that decreases the ADA implementation plan that we had put together. And also, if you recall, we had an interlocal agreement with the City of Vero Beach, and where we fronted the funds for the Jackie Robinson Training Center, that drainage ditch that comes from the airport cuts through. So that's coming out of the budget. They also did document scanning that's going to be removed from the budget, and there was an interior renovation within the department. And then we also are decreasing our supplemental staff services in terms of the contract services. For county engineering, it's a decrease of $61,711, which is largely related to the elimination of one position, but there also are some increases in salaries, auto maintenance due to their aging fleet. And then there's the decreased cost because we purchased an asset management software system from them last year. Traffic engineering, I mentioned 3 positions. These are the other 2. And then last year, we also purchased 2 bucket trucks, a replacement truck for the traffic, and also we went out and we did the traffic network, the switches, we upgraded them, the sign printer, and that we are purchasing. So that's why that decreases $490,000. And stormwater, we purchased some tools last year to kind of get our resources up to where they needed to be, and the electric and garbage costs. There was also a large maintenance project costs last year due to the main relief canal and the Moorhan and Osprey acres. And then last year we also purchased the camera system and the John Deere. So that's the reasons for the $224,000 increase. So for transportation fund, the department's current year budget is $26.9 million. And we are recommending to a $24.1 million or $2.8 million decrease at 10.4%.
Thank you.
The next is our emergency service district budget. Again, this is a municipal service taxing unit. And this is its own separate district, and this is solely dependent upon property taxes. The ad valorem tax roll, well, when it comes to some of the capital, we can OST. But for the personnel expenses operating, that's all tax roll. And the fees that we receive from ALS, which is about $10 million, if I recall correctly. So ad valorem tax roll is a 6.7% increase. It's going to generate an additional $3.8 million. Again, assuming the 95% collections. The millage rate is 2.3531, which We are recommending no change from last fiscal year. There is about a little more than just, $500,000 or just under $600,000 increase in OPEB. Health insurance increase, again, this is fire department, it's $1.4 billion. We have, 363, I think. It's somewhere in the 360, 370 range. So that's why it's a larger amount. There is a capital budget of $3.9 million. And then it's a net decrease of one full-time position, saving $165,000. That's a vacant position right now. In terms of the millage history, you are looking at, again, it's 4.29% above the rollback rate, but we're maintaining it at 2.3531. So for the salaries, we have contracted increases with the IAF contracts. They're both step and the general wage increases, although there is a reduction in overtime. But we did also, as this last contract, increase the paramedic incentive pay. For the benefits, this is related to both, the retirement rates, health insurance, and the OPEB. We did experience a reduction in workers' comp, but the Social Security Medicare increases as well due to the salary increases. And now for fire rescue, the operating, there's an increase in the general and administrative expenses due to the salaries and benefits, but there's also increased automotive insurance because of the increased unit allocation. And then we did have a reduce in other insurance due to lower insurance rates. There's been multiple station roof replacements last year's, but we are expecting increased costs in medicine and medical supplies. But we are decreasing the IS, the Information Security Telecom interdepartment charges due to the reduction in telecom budget. So essentially, they were sharing the costs for an IT person, but the IT person was never really there. So I made the decision that they shouldn't be paying for that and need to stay in the IT budget. So it's $259,000 increase, $260,000. And then you have the State Forest Service, that's something it's by contract. And life safety, the salaries you have there is, we are looking at decreasing one position, so that affects the salaries, the benefits. There is an increase in operating due to the GIS budget and the need to purchase new tablets and a printer that need to be replaced, and that's resulting in a $41,000 increase overall. But in general, for total life safety, right now we're at $533,000 and almost $534,000, and we're proposing a roughly $424,000 or $110,000 reduction for the total emergency services district budget, going from $88.6 million to $78.8 million, which it does represent about a $9.6 million increase, $9.8 million increase or decrease, which is 11%.
Thank you.
So the next one that we're going to cover, let me find my state agencies. Oh, thank you. And I'm going to so for the state agencies, I'm doing this one. Yeah, that's okay. All right, so for state agencies, I just want to emphasize, New Horizons. I did meet with their CEO, and I did convey that we were looking to keep the increases minimal and specifically trying to get a flat budget, recognizing the challenges coming up in this fiscal year. I met with them, I think it was in May, and they did submit, I will tell you, for $550,000, but I'm recommending that we keep the funding level at $450,000. For DJJ, we haven't received their budget yet, So that's going to require a subsequent budget amendment, but we have program for maintaining level funding. So there's another example of what original adopted versus the revised. Medicaid.
But
that's
John,
the-
did you skip the health department?
Health Department, there was a $25,000 increase largely due to salaries, but they provide us that amount. If you recall, we share the expenses with them. This again is a state mandate, if you will, in terms of they're for public health. And they also handle the Environmental Control Health Board. So, that's a 0% increase. The Treasurer's Coast Regional Planning Council, that's our annual membership or dues is based upon, it's a 0.43 formula divided by our population, going up $854, representing the increase in our population. No increase in the National Estuary Program Council to maintain level funding. I mentioned the JJ level funding, but we don't have their actual request yet, but we are we'll bring that back if it was to increase or decrease in the form of budget amendment. The Medicaid, it is an increase of $58,703. Again, that is something that is the state requests the amount, and that's actually the amount that's less the contribution that the hospital district provides to us. So then we go to circuit court expenses. The reduction there is largely due to the mental health court expenses coming into the county. The guardian or the guardian ad litem program, that's a reduction. The victims assistance program, that's really a new function. It's not a new function. It's been operating out of the state attorney's office, but now they're going to be operating separately. They're transitioning from being under the state attorney's office, so that's why you're seeing that as a separate line item with that increase. And the state attorney's office is going up about $1,187. Public defender is a reduction of $8,162. The medical examiner, again, this is one of those ones that's all formula based on our ILA, the number of autopsies, the numbers of deaths, population, and in this past year, one of our other counties experienced greater and we experienced less, so therefore our amount is going down this year. So for the state agencies, the total amount, it was $7,058,000. This year it's being recommended at $6.9 million. Keeping in mind we may have to address DJJ if they come in over their existing funding level, but that would be representing a $134,000, almost $135,000 decrease, or 1.9%.
Thank you, John. Do we have anyone from the state agencies that would like to comment on these proposals? I see Ms. Miranda. Welcome and good morning.
Thank you so much. Good morning. I'd like to thank the County Commission and the County Administrator for your continued support of the Health Department. There are a lot of people in need out there. I know it's a tough budget year, and I really definitely appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, John. Please continue.
So the next is our Economic Development Division, basically remaining flat or an $85, decrease for those expenses.
I've got non-departmental 10B next.
Could be a misprint.
That's the first one, Economic Development.
I'm sorry?
That is for 10B, this is the first one.
Oh,
Economic
I got you,
Development.
yeah.
So the next one would be children.
Not enough coffee, I appreciate it.
Sorry. Children's Services Grant, the amount that was approved by the board in March 24th was, again, it's an eighth mil of funding. It's $3,778,838. It's an increase of $297,000 or 8.5% increase.
And that's funded how?
That's funded through, that's ad valorem, that's funded through general fund. So that's one of the services that might be affected, subject to future implications of property tax reform.
Thank you.
And then we have our CRAs, our Community Redevelopment Agency. We have the Sebastian Redevelopment District. As the property values increase, the amount of the tax increment financing increases, or to the redevelopment trust fund. We pay a portion of that. They froze the base rate, and then as it increases, any increase goes into their fund to help them fund redevelopment activities within their respective redevelopment areas. For the city of Sebastian, it's a 3% increase of it's roughly $10,000. In Fellsmere, this is the third year of their second CRA, the expansion, so therefore they're starting to see the appreciation of value in that district. And so therefore it's just a little bit more of an increase, $32,210, and the percentage is largely due to the lower number of being $119,000.
John, if I could ask you, is there any traction on the sunsetting of CRAs or the development of CRAs in the future?
So there's, in 2019, there was existing law that was proposing to, actually called for the sunsetting of them, but there are provisions related to with a certain vote, of the governing body, whether or not they can be extended. So as of right now, and I know last year and the year before, they were proposing additional legislation to even maybe accelerate that.
Correct.
And I will say, these areas, there's been a determination of blight, or inadequate infrastructure, transportation network, certain services that are not being provided. They typically represent areas that are like downtown and or, that are your main central places where people would notice, a decline and maybe ascribe that decline to the whole city or town. And so therefore, that's where those expenses are, it's really the county partnering to maintain those areas, because if they go down, so does our long-term, our revenues. I know this is really a partnership, and they do provide us an annual report on their activities, and I assure you that report gets well reviewed, having handled several CRAs in my past years.
And how are the CRAs funded?
They are funded through, again, so you have, we'll just say, you have this box on your screen. That's the redevelopment boundary. And as the property values appreciate, because we settled whenever the base was established, say it was 2,000, so that's the base value. The county keeps its portion of the revenue that it was receiving then, and the city keeps their portion of the revenue then. It's actually an independent agency. The board is appointed by the cities, and then any appreciation in value in the property value, as it incrementally goes up, that tax increment, that goes into a redevelopment trust fund, and then they use those funds for the purposes of making improvements to maintain the area. One project that comes to example is the septic to sewer project with Sebastian. We are partnering with them, and they are working to make sure, which has environmental benefits as well as, it kind of controls some of the costs, is the Sebastian septic to sewer, Sebastian CRA septic to sewer project.
Okay, thank you.
So I would say that it's the county's investment in some of our, those areas that have been deemed, in need. So for our nonprofits, I will tell you the agencies requested various levels of increases of funding from as little as 2.95% increase up to 9.6%. The policy does limit, doesn't say that it's not shall, but that the increases are limited to the CPI. So in April, that was 3.6%. But I'm recommending a level funding for all our nonprofit agencies. So for the Mental Health Association, keeping level funding, United Against Poverty, keeping level funding, 211 Palm Beach Treasure Coast, level funding, and then the CTC, CRA, SRA, Senior Services, also level funding.
Okay.
The next would be our quasi nonprofit organizations. The Veterans Service Council, a level funding. I'll just advise the board there is conversations and there's arrangements being worked with them, working with United Way. I think many of you have had meetings about this, so that is going to continue. We do have, and I'm going to come back to the SRA, at least the second item, the SRA coordination of grants. Once we get that number, we then do a budget amendment to bring it in what the grant amount is that's received. And then for the other nonprofits, we are Gifford Youth Achievement Center, Progressive Civic League of Gifford, the Treasure Coast Homeless Services recommending level funding. The reason why you're seeing a reduction in the Humane Society is because we are taking over, in the beginning of November, fully the operation of Animal Control Animal Services. However, we do envision, that, as we mentioned before, a certain level of involvement with the Humane Society, but just not to the extent that was before. Like, matter of fact, if you recall last year, it was like 670 or 680, so we are reducing that significantly. Now, with regard to the communications, the transportation coordinator, their request was about $376,000 more than we are recommending right now. I know each of you, and they've met with each of you, they've met with us, and what I would say is we've met with Karen and Deagle, and I know that there's been 5 options discussed. I would like to suggest that you provide us the latitude to work with Karen and Chris to get where they need, and we'll include and present that at the budget hearing in September. We understand that there's one of the options is like their staffing is $168,000, so there's about a $208,000 delta. So we just want that flexibility to work with Karen and Chris to bring that home between now and the first hearing.
I see Chris and Karen, if they'd like to comment. And this is, I know they met with all of us. Is this the reduction of 100?
It's an increase up from last year's funding, but there was a larger request, and the difference would be about $376,000 that I reduced the funding level by.
And you've had discussions about something. Good morning and welcome.
Good morning. Good morning. I'm Karen Deagle, the CEO of Senior Resource Association. And so SRA requested $2,250,618,000 in local funding to maintain our current level of public transit service. The increase over last year's budget is primarily due to 2 factors that we've all discussed. First, fuel costs. Fuel costs have risen dramatically. Fuel expenses are currently approximately about 45% higher than they were a year ago. It's unknown if or when fuel prices will decrease. So last year we requested, in our budget last year, there was $550,000 for fuel. This year we have to budget, our request is $800,000. So that is an additional $250,000 over last year just for fuel. The second reason is the 3-year $800,000 per year service development grant that ends midway through this fiscal year. That grant funded the expanded service hours that the Commission approved 3 years ago. Those expanded hours have been a tremendous success. Ridership continues to grow, including a remarkable 17% increase over last year, a level of growth that's uncommon for most public transit systems today. County staff has recommended funding of $1,874,557, which is $367,000 less the amount than we requested. Funding at that level would require significant reductions in service hours across the GO line system. And public transportation, may I say, is not simply just another county service. It is a critical, essential service. Every day, GO Line connects people to work, school, after-school programs, grocery stores, healthcare appointments, social services, and countless other destinations that improve their quality of life. A community can invest in the very best healthcare, education, and social service programs, but if people have no reliable way to reach them, those services cannot fulfill their purpose. Recognizing the financial challenges facing the county, SRA took a hard look at our own budget. We eliminated 2 positions and reduced staff development expenses, lowering our request by $168,000. So today, as County Administrator mentioned, after making those reductions ourselves, the difference we are asking to consider is that $208,000. Let me remind you, because I never hesitate to brag about GO Line. Last year, GO Line provided 1.5 million passenger trips, a 17% increase over the previous year. 84% of Indian River County residents live within 3/4 of a mile of GO Line bus stops. And for 9 consecutive years, GO Line has maintained the lowest cost per passenger trip in the state of Florida at $3.42. And 3 times in the past 10 years, GO Line has been recognized as Florida's System of the Year by the Florida Public Transportation Association. These accomplishments didn't happen overnight. They are the result of many years of partnership between this commission, county staff, SRA, and our dedicated employees, all working together to build one of the finest public transportation systems in Florida. So I respectfully ask that you approve funding of the $2,082,557 for the upcoming fiscal year. Doing so will allow us to preserve the level of service our community depends on and continue providing safe, reliable, and award-winning public transportation for the residents of this community. And thank you for your continued support and consideration.
Thank you.
I appreciate that. I don't think anybody wants to see a reduction in service. You've built an amazing system.
We have.
From those 15 passenger vans to the fine fleet and connectivity that are provided for the citizens. I do appreciate that. I understand that a lot of the cost burden is with dependent upon fuel, and hopefully that's declining. We can't work on a wish, though. So I like the county administrator's suggestion as far as meeting the needs, because they may change. And again, not working on the wish, or hope, but we believe that they will be declining, and perhaps that burden will not be as significant. And I do appreciate the county administrator's recommendation.
The other alternative is you could fund it at the recommended level, and we could do a budget amendment, similar to what we were talking about with the sheriff as the amount comes in, like we did this year.
So we have a consensus on a mid-year amendment?
However is the easiest way to work it out, but I would agree that I don't want to see a reduction in service hours or days. It's really important to my district, I know other districts, for people to move around. They use it for jobs and access to resources, especially in some of our lower income communities and our farther reaching communities that have transportation needs or lack of transportation. And I know we fought really hard to get those hours extended, especially those weekend hours, so the service was more useful to our working class. I mean, we're a service industry economy, so everybody's working till 9 or 10 o'clock and on the weekends. So if your system closes at 7, you can get to work, but you can't get home. So
And in the spirit, they've already eliminated 2 positions at, was it 100,
168,000
I thought it was
out of our budget, yes.
168. So their ask now, John, is 208? Is that what I'm hearing?
It's an additional 208.
So this number here should be changed?
Well, we would leave that number and do the budget amendment for 208. Maybe wait and see a little longer what fuel does. If fuel comes down, we could use that opportunity as a savings. She might not need as high of a budget amendment. If fuel goes up, then we're in a worse position, but.
But leave the option open.
What if fuel goes way down? Do we get money back?
Possibly, we've talked about that, as in knowing what our
I mean,
what our bucket of money
could.
is, and saying, okay, we might just put this aside and chip away at it, and then if there is, that's a possibility
Or
too.
we could expand ours.
Or we could
Well,
expand.
I'll have
Thank
you
you.
know that I am the chairman.
I wasn't going to be pushy there.
Well,
I am the chairman of the Traffic Disadvantaged,
And a benevolent chairman you are.
correct, thank you.
Transportation Disadvantaged Local Coordinating Board.
just a
Exactly what she said. Okay, any further discussion? Everybody good?
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you
you,
for
John.
your support.
So the understanding is
and-
we'll leave it at what we're budgeting, recommending, and then we'll process a budget amendment working with SRA in the upcoming fiscal year, subject to the needs, right?
Yeah, I would say you'll work it out
Yes.
whatever,
I appreciate
the
you
easiest
cutting.
way possible for,
Yep.
for the two of you.
We recognize the critical importance to our community as well.
The number may change.
And cutting 2
We'll
positions.
address it.
Yes.
Maybe others should do that.
What's that?
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
So, Mr. Chair, I'll now turn it over to yourself and the board to go over the street lighting district assessment rates.
Yeah.
Mr. Administrator, if we could take a 5-minute recess. The time is 11:34. We will make it 6, and we'll meet back at 11:40.
What?
be official.
Wait, we don't have,
The time now is 11:41. We are reconvening our July 8, 2026 budget workshop.
Now,
Welcome and good morning still. Mr. Administrator.
Yes, I just want to point out the number 13, non-ad valorem assessment charges. That's going to be covered under number 15, so we can strike 13.
Okay. That brings us to
Street lighting district.
street lighting districts.
I think the outgoing member.
oh my God, there's a change this year. Somebody is gonna have.
generally at the workshop, staff presents it.
Oh, I have no problem with that.
Okay.
You don't want to present it like for,
Okay.
That's at the
Last-
hearing.
Okay,
Well, we
so,
have two more at the hearings,
okay.
when we have to
Oh, at the hearings, okay, all right,
enumerate.
I just wanted to give you every opportunity.
okay.
in
So
your
for the
last
I would be
budget
on
cycle.
it.
For the street lighting district assessments, we have, all of them are maintaining the same except for Exora Park, because of electricity costs going up. It's gone from $32 parcel per acre to $35. And I'll go through do you want me to go through the rest? But they're all
I
maintaining
kind of like the
same.
way you just did it, so.
Okay, you like
go
the way
with
I did it. Okay. Right to the point. There's only one that's going up, Exora Park. If you're good with that, we can move on. I can read them all off if you want.
All items as reflected?
I think since his last budget hearing, he needs to read them.
But the budget hearing, maybe, that'd be,
Oh, at
We'll
the
make them
hearing,
do it in September.
Yeah, he'll
I
do it in
will be
September.
happy to be honored and proud.
Just remember, Exora Park, you're gonna have to do
I'll
a
make
little
a
something
cheat sheet
different
for you.
Okay.
Comes with a wheelchair.
there. Moving on before the chair
Moving
gets
on.
mad at us.
Try the veal, you'll be here all week. Thank you, sir.
All right, next we have MSBU's and other assessments. Vero Lake Estates MSBU flat at $50. East Gifford Stormwater MSBU flat at $10. Raintree Corners Culvert Assessment, this is the first year for that assessment. There's 16 parcels there and the payback period will be for 10 years. The proposed amount is $2,927.93. Water's Edge Culvert Assessment, going down to $377.43. The reduction here is because the number levied last year, the amount levied last year was based on budgeted estimates, and then we trued up this year for the actuals.
On those MSBU's, I would like to recommend, and I will bring forth a policy, that the board no longer support these MSBU assessments. This last year has shown how difficult, and I think it's going to be more of a challenge in future years, because essentially the county is fronting the money and then assessing for private infrastructure improvements. The county's fronting the money and then, going through the assessment process.
That's not accurate for all of them.
No, I'm just saying the Raintree and the Water's Edge.
Okay, the
I mean,
culvert ones.
The culverts
Okay.
ones, the culverts,
Before I have a mutiny.
yes.
Those that are new to the game, yes.
Thank you.
All right, next we've got the North County Water Assessment. The scheduled amount is $275.78. That's down $7.44 from last year. They are in year 4 of their 10-year payback period. Next, we have the solid waste disposal districts. Residential and commercial are per waste generation unit. No change there. They're proposed at $125.06 for residential and $79.12 for commercial. The readiness to use fee also remains flat at $46.62. The next proposed assessment rate is for universal collection. This is what John mentioned earlier, going from $181.70 in the current year to $183.92. That's because of the CPI requested increase we have from our waste hauler. So the residents will pay an additional $2.22 for next fiscal year. Next, we have our enterprise funds. We'll start with solid waste disposal district. The proposed budget is $44,356,119. That's a roughly $2 million or 4.6% increase there. The budget is rising there due to increased costs of recycling, processing, and transportation, as well as increased convenience center and landfill operating contracts. Golf course proposed budget is $8,059,138. We're up about $2.9 million there, or 55%. That is mainly due to the opening of the new clubhouse, restaurant, and banquet facility. That's roughly $2 million of those expenses. Next, we have utilities. The proposed budget is $66,659,344. This is a $1.8 million decrease, or 2.7%. Utilities water impact fees, proposed budget is $1,682,309, up $806,053, or 92%. That's mainly due to the fluctuation of capital projects that are programmed and approved in the CIE each year. The same holds true for the sewer impact fees. They are up $706,693, or 63.7%, for a proposed budget of $1,816,500.
And again, just to point out what we talked about at the beginning of the meeting, these funds are generated by these departments and then spent by these departments. So they're like mini businesses. These are
Yes.
not taxpayer dollars.
Yes, we can't take any revenue generated at the golf course and give it to the general fund, or vice versa.
Right, and you can't obviously commingle them,
No.
because I think that discussion may come up next year.
All right, next we have the internal service funds. Fleet management, proposed budget is $4,802,581. They're up only slightly, 0.3%, or $14,000. That increase is to cover the additional health insurance costs. Next, we have risk management, our self-insurance fund. The proposed budget is $9,028,550, a decrease of about $1.5 million, or 14.4%. The reduction there is mainly from our property and casualty premium decreasing. The board approved that back in on April 21st. That was about $900,000 of the reduction there. And then we also have the fact that this is the first year the budget is reflective of the sheriff going out on his own for his workers' comp coverage. Next, we have the employee health insurance fund. Proposed budget is $39,500,203, up $4.3 million, or 12.2%. This reflects the cost presented to the BCC on June 16th regarding the rising medical and pharmacy claims, as well as the rising cost of the employee health clinic.
Chris, with the elimination of certain things that we voted on last month, I don't want to make you guess or anything, but would you see potentially being flat next year?
Flat is the goal. Flat is the plan. Obviously, anything can happen. We can have high-cost claimants, that we don't
Gotcha.
count on. I think that's kind of what's pushing us this year. But yes, it's designed to be basically flat.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And lastly, we have information technology. The proposed budget is $6,933,579, a decrease of $261,000, or 3.6%. And this decrease is in other professional service as well as software expenses. Next, we'll start with our miscellaneous funds. First, we have Fund 102, our traffic impact fees. The proposed budget is $0. That's a reduction of $753,133. These traffic impact fees are no longer being collected, so we're basically just spending down the balances that we've accumulated in those districts. Fund 103, additional impact fees. These are impact fees for law enforcement, fire, public buildings, and parks. The proposed budget is $1,483,615. That's a decrease of $7.3 million. This is due to what John mentioned before. We have the ongoing projects that we fund via budget amendment once we know what that rollover amount is. So this $1.48 million is the amount that you all approved in the CIE for year 2. Any of that $8.8 million in the current budget that is not complete at the end of this current fiscal year will be added to that $1.4 million for next year. Fund 104 traffic impact fees 2020. Proposed budget is $7,050,000, a decrease of $9.2 million. Again, these are our active traffic impact fees where we went down consolidated to the 2 districts, and the budget fluctuates due to the CIE projects. Next, we have Fund 108 rental assistance, $3,738,830, a decrease of $254,500. This is reflective of the grant revenue we're scheduled to receive for our Section 8 housing for next year. Fund 109, Secondary Roads Construction, or our Gas Tax Fund, proposed budget is $9,585,973,000. This is a decrease of about $4 million, again, largely programmed into our CIE projects, and that's why there's a big fluctuation there. Special Law Enforcement, the proposed budget is $0. This fund is funded via budget amendment once we know what the dollar amount is that we've collected, and then that money's given to the sheriff. Tree Ordinance Fine, Fund 117, the proposed budget is $280,000, a reduction of $105,000. This is because Hallstrom, South Prong, Lagoon, and Cypress Bend were in the CA for last year. Next, we have Tourist Development Fund, $2,361,451, an increase of $112,816. This reflects the TDC's recommended funding award that the board approved back on June 16th. 911 Surcharge Fund, Fund 120, the proposed budget is $1,218,128, a reduction of about $1.7 million. That reduction is largely due to the next-gen 911 software that we have in the current fiscal year, so that will be removed for next year. Fund 121 Drug Abuse Fund, proposed budget is $90,000. This reflects the request that the county received from the 19th Judicial Circuit for what they would like to spend in that fund for next year. Fund 123, our SHIP Fund, proposed budget is $1,734,196, a large decrease there of $1.8 million. It's just reflective of the county's SHIP allocation that's planned for next fiscal year. MPO proposed budget is $719,132, a decrease of $93,068. There is the elimination of one position there. Native Uplands Acquisition Fund, Fund 127, the proposed budget is $206,000, an increase there of $106,000, and this is for invasive species control and also fire breaks. And then last on this slide, Fund 128 Coastal Engineering, proposed budget is $3,351,637. That's a decrease of about $5.9 million. There are no beach renourishment projects planned in this upcoming year, which is the reason for the decrease. In the current fiscal year, we had $6 million planned in for the renourishment of Sector 5. Continuing on with the miscellaneous funds, next we have our Neighborhood Stabilization Plan 3 fund, level at $10,000, followed by the Florida Boating Improvement Program. Proposed budget is $140,000. That's a $311,300 decrease, and that is due to the current year having the $255,000 budgeted for the anchoring limitation update. We won't need to do that again next year. Fund 135 Disabled Access Program, the proposed budget for next year is $0. That's a decrease of $34,638. And that's because the current year we are spending the balance of that fund down for an ADA accessibility study. Fund 137, Dory Schlossberg Driver Education Safety Act, $49,000 level funding there. That is the request that we received from the Indian River County School District for their driver's education program. ARP funds, the proposed budget is $0. Those are due to be spent by the end of the calendar year. So hopefully there won't be anything that needs to be rolled over there. CARES Act, proposed budget is $0. It's a reduction of $83,175. That's the remaining balance that we have in the CARES Act fund as of now. Fund 140, Court Facility Surcharge Fund, the proposed budget is $150,458. That's an increase of $29,634. This fund funds court facility related expenses from the state attorney, guardian ad litem, public defender, and court administration. Fund 141, Additional Court Cost Fund, proposed budget is level there at $95,000. This fund funds the Access to Justice Program, teen court, and court administration. But I do want to mention, as John said, some of our mandates that we have earlier. This fund does not support all of the requested expenses that we've received from those agencies. So unfortunately, the general fund had to pick up the remaining $56,325 that Fund 142, or Fund 141 cannot cover. Next, we have Fund 142, Court Technology Fund. The proposed budget is $325,000, an increase of $25,000 there. This budget covers the IT portion of guardian ad litem, state attorney, and public defender. Again, not able to support the expenses requested there. So the general fund is picking up $650,291 of those dollars. Next, we have the land acquisition, Fund 145. Proposed budget is $0. This is from the land acquisition bonds issued back in 2006. There's just remaining leftover grant reimbursement funds there, but we are scheduled to spend those down in the current fiscal year. Fund 147, Opioid Settlement Fund. The proposed budget is $0, a reduction of $513,000. That's because we handle those via budget amendment as the salary proceeds are received each fiscal year. They're a little uncertain. And then last we have Fund 155. This is our current land acquisition bond proceeds from the first issuance. There is $24,610,154 in the current fiscal year. The proposed budget for next year is $0, and that is because once the fiscal year is closed, we'll know how much balance remains after we purchase the proposed land acquisitions that are going through now, and then we'll roll the balance so that we know the exact amount that we have to work with for next year. Any questions?
That
may I
is
ask
an
a question?
example of how the budget becomes amended and bigger than the approved original budget.
Yeah, so obviously a large portion of that will roll over.
Commissioner Mo.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just had a question on the additional, I guess it's court cost funds. So what happens with that? That's a state mandate that we have to pay a certain amount, and then if it goes over that amount, we just have to pay that, whatever it is, and they just send you a bill? How does that work? I'm trying to picture it.
So the agencies give us their budgets, and then we use these revenues to offset. So these are fees that are collected at the courthouse when you pay like a ticket or a certain kind of charge that you have to pay. A portion of what you pay goes into these funds, and it's intended to offset those costs. Unfortunately, it does not. So when, guardian ad litem presents their budget, we fund what we can out of these special revenue funds to keep the pressure off the general fund. But ultimately, if the county is to continue providing guardian ad litem services, we do cover it from the general fund. Now, we work with those agencies, and we often ask, if there's a new position, can they phase it in, or have they looked at other cost-saving measures? And we have in the past decided that we weren't going to fund certain operations of their budget. But the interlocal says that once one county does that, out of the 4 counties that we share in these services, Okeechobee, St. Lucie, and Martin, Indian River County, then all of the counties have to reduce their budgets by that same amount. So it's kind of a collective.
Well, if something's over budget, can you just send the bill to the state?
Jennifer?
I mean, it's their mandate, and if we don't know what the amount is, and if it's over, and you can't predict it, you're wonderful, but you're not psychic. And, maybe we should just send the bill back to them.
Well, there are, and I can provide the board an analysis of what we're actually statutorily required to do, and then what we step up to the plate and try to help with. I'm seeing that there's both of these at play in these funds, but.
I think we're going to need to know, really, like a list, as a separate slide. What are we mandated to pay by the state? Now, what are those amounts? And is it a set amount? Is it a predictable amount? Is it an I don't know amount? I think we're going to have to get really, buttoned down with this, because think about it. These are all state mandates, all right? They're not worried about it. They just go over and and send us the bill, and then they tell us we're spending too much money. Yeah. So we need to end that. So I would love to see that list. I'm sure the others are curious too.
Sure.
Okay.
We'll absolutely work on that.
Thank you.
Anything further? Next, we have the other debt capital funds. The Dodger bonds, the proposed budget is $500,000. As John mentioned earlier, this is the annual debt service to pay for the Jackie Robinson Training Complex property. The bond, or the debt service will expire in 2031, but the payment for the $500,000 is funded by our agreement with the state each year.
What, say
Fund
that
two-
again? Say that, funded by what?
The $500,000 we receive from the state each year under the Retrained Spring Training Facility agreement we have with the state. So since it is still functioning in a similar manner, we are able to continue receiving that $500,000 from the state each year, which covers the debt service. So no county funds are used there.
In 2031, this bond's gone?
That is correct.
See, Laura, that's where the 500's coming in from the state, that they're actually sending to us, so we're kind of just trading money. Hopefully, we're on the plus.
At least
Still
until
spending.
2031.
Okay.
Fund 255, the land acquisition bond, the proposed budget is $3,982,041, an increase of $2,138,609. Again, as John mentioned earlier, we issued that remaining $27 million in the voter-approved land acquisition bonds, and we just closed last week on July 2nd. Fund 308, Jackie Robinson Training Complex, proposed budget is $434,112, a decrease of $558,801. This fund is decreasing due to the rollover of unspent funds in 25-26. The amount proposed is for the capital and maintenance expense that includes a CPI adjustment each year per our facility lease agreement with Major League Baseball. And lastly, we have optional 1-cent sales tax, Fund 315. The proposed budget is $51,635,877, a decrease of about $35 million there. And again, this is due to the fluctuation of those capital projects at year end. We roll over the balance, and then what is in this fund proposed for 26-27 is in the CIE that you all have approved.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, now it's time to review the aggregate millage. Again, the aggregate millage is not something that everybody will, but this is just the average, if you will. And it's going from, it's 6.1158. The rollback rate is 5.8554, and the proposal is to go to 6.1155, and the rollback difference is 0.2601. So in closing here on some of these the overall budget, the total proposed budget for 2026, 2027 is $614,789,330, a decrease of $96,944,702. For the general fund, the proposed millage is 3.5475. That's 4.62% above rollback. The proposed budget is $172,434,473, an increase of $984,119. For the municipal service taxing unit, the proposed millage is 1.1506, 4.26% above rollback. The proposed budget is $57,189,815, a decrease of $733,865. And then the transportation fund, the proposed budget is $25,610,535, a decrease of $2,798,846. For the emergency services district, the proposed millage is 2.3531, 4.29% above the rollback, and the proposed budget is $78,839,816, a decrease of $9,758,232. For the land acquisition bond series 2024, the proposed millage is 0.1238. The proposed budget is $3,982,041, an increase of $2,138,609. So, Mr. Chair, members of the board, now would be time to consider any proposed changes to the tentative budget, make a motion to adopt the proposed, and then make a motion to adopt the proposed millage rates.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Flesch.
I'd like the county administrator, can you read off that mill rate again? It was,
About 3 slides.
3.5475.
it
Is the
sounds
general
very
fund.
familiar. Is that the 7th consecutive year?
Seventh consecutive year for that, 7th consecutive year for the municipal service taxing unit at 1.1506, and the 6th consecutive year for the emergency services district at 2.3531.
So that's 3.5475.
Yes, sir. General fund.
Mr. Chair, motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer and a second by Commissioner Adams. Any further discussion on this particular millage rate? Hearing none, seeing none. All in favor?
Aye.
And the motion carries.
Job, sir.
The
Municipal service taxing unit proposed millage is 1.1506. Again, that's 4.26% above rollback.
Commissioners, what's your pleasure?
Mr. Chair, motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion by Commissioner Fleischer, a second by Commissioner Adams. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And the motion carries.
In the emergency service district, the proposed millage is 2.3531, and that is 4.29% above the rollback rate.
Commissioner,
Mr. Chair, motion to approve. Second. Proposed
motion by
millage rate.
Commissioner Fleischer and a second by Commissioner Erman. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the land acquisition bond for Series 2024, the proposed millage is 0.1238.
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Commissioner Moss, a second by Commissioner Adams. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye, and the motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, the two budget hearings are scheduled. The preliminary budget hearing will occur on September 9th, 2016 at 5:01 p.m. right here at the Board of County Commissioner Chambers. And the final budget hearing will occur a week later at September 16th, 2026 at 5:01 p.m. again here at the BCC Chambers.
Any further comments, Commissioners? Any
Yes,
further-
Mr. Chairman, I think you just grabbed the record for the, the shortest budget workshop in the history of any River County.
Thank you. I will wear that honor proudly. Thank you, staff. Thank you, John. Well done. Thank you for those that attended. This meeting is adjourned.